Hi everyone, this is Henry from How to Become, and this is part one in a series called The Romans in Britain, where we're going to look through how the Romans dealt with and eventually conquered Britain. Now, part one's going to focus on Julius Caesar. Let's get started with a bit about Julius Caesar in general. Now, Julius Caesar was born in Rome in 100 BC and soon became an important politician within the Republic, which Rome was at the time. Which was a government of shared power before they had emperors. He soon became the most powerful man in the Republic, but was eventually pushed out by a former ally called Pompey. However, he had control of an army and was popular among the Roman people, so he fought back against Pompey's rebellion and eventually became the dictator or ultimate ruler of all of Rome. Now, as dictator, Caesar helped transform Rome into a major world city. He did this by building libraries, temples, and art galleries, as well as looking into foreign lands to take it over. But his reign didn't last very long. 5 years into his dictatorship, Caesar was assassinated by a group of politicians who thought he had too much power. They wanted Rome to go back to the way it was, a republic with shared power. However, this did not happen. Instead, Rome was plunged into 10 years of civil war, and the chaos that followed eventually led Rome into the system of emperors that has since been known for. But before Caesar was killed, he did try to take over Britain and add it to the empire. In 55 BC, he and his army set sail to Britain on a fleet of ships, but he had a tough time. On the journey between Rome and Britain, there was terrible weather and high waves which the Romans weren't used to. To make it worse, tribal warriors who lived in Britain at the time could see the Roman ships from the white cliffs of Dover, and they were ready for a fight. The Romans were scared of having to fight them straight away, so they had to sail around the bottom of the British coast to look for a safe place to land. But to make it even worse, their ships were too big and heavy to anchor in the shallow water near to the coast, so soldiers had to swim across the freezing and choppy water to get to Britain. This meant that the Romans' first fights against the tribesmen were very tough, as the barbarians, as the Roman called them, could throw javelins at them from the land while they were swimming. Caesar was scared, so he had to send for reinforcements. He wanted his cavalry troops, which were soldiers with horses which would help destroy the tribes. But from their journey from Gaul to Britain, even more bad weather meant they had to return, so Caesar didn't get his reinforcements. That meant the army Caesar initially went with was left on their own against the tribesmen, who were good at ambushing the Romans, which means surprise attack. Eventually, Caesar was able to use his superior fighting force to defeat some of the local tribes, but without backup he struggled to take any land, which was his initial plan. Amazingly, Julius Caesar had to give up invading Britain and head home. It was one of the biggest failures in his otherwise very successful life and career as a military leader. That means the Romans had to wait for many years to add Britain to their empire, although it would happen eventually. Okay, let's go through some questions of what we've just learned. Now put your answers in the comments below and I'll mark them for you and tell you how you got on. Question 1. True or false? Julius Caesar was born in the year 150 AD. So put your answers in the comments below and I'll let you know if you got it right. Question 2. Put your answers in the comments below. Why did a group of politicians assassinate Caesar only 5 years into his dictatorship? Question 3. The tribal warriors in Britain were good at ambush attacks. What does this mean? So, as I said before, put your answers in the comment section below and we'll comment back to you to see how you did. So that's it for the video. Thanks for watching. For more information on the Romans, you can check out our playlist containing our original video on the Romans. Be sure to check back next week for our second video in this series about the Romans in Britain. As well as this, check the description for even more resources on this subject. Thanks for watching, and like and subscribe.